All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Her Business Podcast. My name's Ferris Ryan. Today, I got one of my best friends in this space. I would say one of my favorite guys doing this. I got my boy from the Caged In Podcast. As I'm repping it, my boy,
Yes,
Mister
sir.
Chris DiCarlo. How we doing today, bro?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. You are also one of my best friends in the space too, man. So I gotta, reiterate that sentiment for sure, brother. Always
Let's
appreciate you. Always love getting on the Her Business podcast. Love having you on my show as well. It's always a good conversation. You can talk for hours about this shit. So, it's always a fun time pulling up with you, brother.
Yes, sir. We got a hefty list, as I briefly mentioned before recording. We
Mhm.
have a lot of things to talk about today, and let's just get right into it. We're gonna start with the Zombie and Max last weekend at UFC Singapore, and what a scene that whole it all was. What were your thoughts on the fight itself?
The fight itself kind of went the way I was expecting it to. Um, I didn't actually. You know what? I take that back. I did think it was going to go into the later rounds. To be honest with you, I thought it was going to go more to like 4 and 5. Um, I thought Max kind of would, kind of drag Zombie out, but he ended up putting him away in the third round. It could have gone either way. You're either thinking like, okay, Zombie's kind of on his way out. This is a retirement fight. Max is just going to starch him real quick, put him away quick. Or, we could have seen these guys kind of get some vintage Zombie where we're going to go back and forth and have a slugfest for a few rounds. It ended
Yeah,
up going, the first way, Max putting him out in the third, almost putting him out in the second. Um, that knockdown was gnarly. You could see the knockdown that he had in the second where he clocks Zombie and then kind of tries to do like a little bit of walk off just like out of respect for him. He didn't want to add any more punches to him because he figured that the ref would jump in and stop it. And the ref didn't get in there. So instead of just trying to follow up with finishing punches, he goes in for a submission to try and get Zombie out that way without having to do any more damage to his head, which is just a testament to, how honorable and respectful Max is to his opponents. Even though some might say this is the fight game, doesn't really matter, but Max is just a different breed for sure. But then, he comes out there with the highlight reel knockout in the third round. Place goes wild, Max goes wild. And, it was definitely a scene for sure. How'd you feel about the fight?
dude, it was a seed, man. I mean, I love that choke. Whenever Max locked that in, I was like, "Yo, yo!" And then when he started rolling, I was losing my shit. And then Max thought he was out. He like was asking the ref, "Is he out? Is he out? Is he still breathing?"
Yeah.
But Zombie came out in that third round, like he was asking for it almost. Like he was just standing in the middle, like, "Come on!"
Hmm.
And Max was just sharp, clean, just sniped him, just
Yeah, man.
sniped him.
It's one of those things I was watching with my dad, and we were like, this is one of those things that we always talk about, like with fighters, where it's like, okay, the fight's not going your way. Zombie clearly got dropped in the second round, was damn
Yeah,
near out, almost got submitted right after that. So the thing is, like, when you see guys in that scenario, and then normally it's like you talk about in like a 3 round decision, like after round one, after round two, you're down 2 rounds. You're like, all right, man, you got to come out here and get a finish, right? Just put your feet in the ground, start throwing bombs. And a lot of fighters can't do that. They can't just like get into that mental space to go out on their shield. But I feel like in that third round, Zombie knew that he needed to do something crazy in order to win this fight. And he's one of the very few guys I feel like could actually, go out on his shield and put the gloves out there and just throw hands. And then if he catches Max and knocks him out, amazing. If he doesn't, he just like he did goes out on his shield. And there's not a lot of people that can do that. And I think that's a testament to just the legend of the Korean Zombie for sure.
yeah, man, 100%. And he kind of was touching Max up a little bit. Max wasn't untouched in that one. And in the sequence that he got finished, like that shot, Max also got hit. He
Hmm.
just, that shot was just a little bit less forceful. And Max is so good, man. He just continues to prove like, yeah, Zombie's a legend. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I'm that guy. Like, this is my
Hmm.
division. Alex exists. That's why I'm not champ. But other than that, like, I'm him.
Oh, for sure. He definitely is, man. He definitely is. Like you said, if it wasn't for Alex, we might still be in the midst of a Max Holloway title run to this day. Who knows?
The blessed era, man. So that leads me to asking you, what's next? Like this top 10, he's fought in them all, aside from
Uh,
like 2 or 3, and it's like, are those
it's
exciting fights? So what do you
it's
wanna see
hard.
him do?
It's hard to predict with Max, man, because he has kind of fought everybody, and he is kind of in that number one contender spot in his division. So, like, yeah, you could say like, oh, just give him Alex again, but we've seen it 3 times already. The
Yeah,
fans don't want to see that one again. To be honest, we know how that one's gonna go. Alex is like damn near the number one pound per pound fighter in the world right now. Dude's on an absolute tear. arguably beat a 155er in Islam. Obviously, the decision didn't go his way, but a lot of people think he won that fight. And then Max, you can clearly see that he's slowing down a bit. He's not as dominant, and it's crazy to say that after the fight that we just saw. But in comparison to the rest of Max's career, you can tell that he's kind of slowing down a little bit towards the end of his career. So I don't think anybody wants to see Max versus Volk at this point, but there are still plenty of fun fights for Max to fight. The dude's an absolute gamer and an absolute dog, and I think he'll go in there with anybody. You could bump him back up to 155 and fight one of those exciting guys up there like a Poirier or somebody like that would be fun. There's just a lot of fun matchups for him if you want to kind of put him in that spot where it's like some of these fights that you're taking, Max, they're not going to get you to a title, but these are fights that the fans are going to love and they're going to make you a lot of money. So there's a lot of options out there for him, I feel like, even though he has fought so many fighters already in his career.
That's a good point. He's like a super duper star at that division, in the UFC. So like, no matter who he fights, it's gonna sell.
Exactly.
But I want him to be in a championship fight, and it sucks because like I don't want to see him fight Alex again, but I want him to fight for a championship.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
where I stand. It's so weird because like he's not fighting Islam. He's not going up and going for a strap right away.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I really don't want to see him fight another up and comer, man. I don't want to see a rematch with I don't know, Ilya to they didn't fight Ilya. That's the one matchup
Yeah.
that's kind of interesting.
I think the
But
UFC is saving Ilya for Volk, man. They're trying to put Ilya
mm,
in a bubble right now because they know that he's kind of like the next guy to like come up and get that shot. So I feel like they're not going to put him at risk like that.
right, they learned their lesson with Arnold Allen,
Exactly.
you know. But at the same time, I don't know, man. It's a toughie. It's a
Yeah.
toughie.
Who would you match him up against, although, if you had the shot? Like if you were playing matchmaker right now?
I feel like you said, it's definitely not going to be Ilya. I would want a fun rematch.
Hmm.
I would want a fun rematch because that's the only thing like left at this division. And then and a guy that's been really quiet lately hasn't been in any MMA news or fought in since his title loss is Brian Ortega, man.
Ooh, that's a
And
good pull. I like
we
that.
all we all remember that classic he had with Max. And imagine if they ran it back. It won't have gold on the line, which is just my dilemma with all this, but it is a fun rematch.
Dude, that's a fight that you could easily make as, one of their marquee fight night headliners, a main event. Go put that fight in like a major city. Don't put it in the Apex for the love of God. I'm so
Yeah,
sick of the
hell
Apex.
no. Hell
But
no.
that's a fight where you could put it as a headliner. Like you see them do it with like UFC Jacksonville, where that wasn't a pay-per-view, but it
Mhm.
was a fight night that everybody was clamoring for. I could see them doing something like that with like a Max Ortega or even that, or stick it as like the co-main event on a pay-per-view event for sure. Like that's a fight that people love. Max, people love Ortega. No matter which way you go, people are going to watch that fight and they're going to
Yeah.
want to see that fight.
Exactly, and it could be like a title eliminator. The winner of this has to go against Volk, no matter who it is, type deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I don't know. Although I've never talked about this, but I think about it all the time. My dream matchup at 45. Think
Mm-hmm.
about this, Chris. Think about this. Think about this. Let me full
Thinking.
screen this real quick. Look, our guy Calvin Cater from Boston, hometown guy. He goes up against Brian Ortega, an LA guy, a real advocate for Southern LA, I believe, and in that whole scene and just everything from California. He reps Cali like no other. California, LA versus Boston. Is it not right there?
It's right there, man. You
Is it
you know
not?
what? It's not something that I had thought about, man, because I know we haven't really seen Cater or Ortega kind of in the headlines of late. But dude, I can see that. That'd be a fucking amazing matchup, and the marketing itself sells it. The fight sells itself, man.
Dude,
I'm
think
there
about
with
the
you, man. We
promos.
need, we need to get you a quick line to the matchmakers at the UFC. Get Dana and Hunter and all those guys on the line and tell them what's up.
Dude, the promos, the clips that you can make with that is so golden. It's
Oh, dude, you
unbelievable,
could
man.
even. I heard that Dana was saying that they have a lot of stuff in the works for next year and like cities that they want to go to. And one of them that they mentioned was he didn't say LA, but he said Southern California. I'm
Mm,
assuming maybe San Diego or something down there. So if they do like a fight night headliner there, dude, that's your SoCal versus Boston
that's a main event.
venue right there, man. Stick it in there. Main event: Calvin Cater, Brian Ortega, UFC San Diego. Have Ortega come out in Laker purple, You know,
Mm.
Cater come out in Celtic green, man, and we'll
Yo,
make it happen.
oh my goodness, bro, that shit would be a scene. I hope I didn't fuck up the whole Southern California for Brian Ortega, but it's LA versus Boston, and that fight would be awesome.
Facts,
Uh,
man. Facts.
but back to Max, I just ask you before we push past the 45 division and UFC
Mhm.
Singapore, who if you were playing matchmaker, who would you throw him up against?
Um, I just don't like. I like him at 45. Obviously, that's his best weight class. That's where he made his money. Um, but I think without being able to get to the title shot versus Volk, I don't really see much good in him kind of destroying 145 contenders and keep ruining all these guys that are trying to make it up the ranks. That's part of the fight game, but it only matters if Max is going to beat these guys and then get a shot versus Volk, which clearly, that's just I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. So for me, like I said, I alluded to it earlier. I think I would put him back at 155,
Mm,
but don't put him versus somebody like a Islam that's gonna really try to use that size advantage to their advantage. Like what Islam's gonna do to Max. He's gonna grab him up and put him on the ground. Put him in there versus like a Dustin Poirier who's coming off a loss. I think that would be very, very fun fight, very entertaining. Two of the most beloved fighters in the UFC. I think it would be just go down as like a striking clinic between both guys. And it's one of those ones where it's like, you don't know who's going to win. Yeah, DP is the bigger guy. He has the power, but you see how crafty Max is, and Max doesn't get finished, man. So I think that would be my dream matchup for Max right now. Just because, for the simple fact is, I just don't want Max destroying any more of these up and coming 45ers. To be honest with you,
fair, fair. I understand, man. He's done that. He's done that how many times at this point? And it's like, all
so
right,
many.
we want these guys to be champions. We want these guys to see Volk potentially.
Exactly, and it's hard to match up those guys versus Volk when they're coming off a loss to a guy that
Yeah, you can't do
Volk's
that.
already beat 3 times. It just doesn't look good.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Well, the 45 division is up in a frenzy, and I hope they figure it out soon because there's a lot of fun stuff that could be made there. But pushing past UFC Singapore and into the United States of America's future heavyweight boxing champion of the world, Mr. Jared Anderson, who's coming off a fifth round TKO. And we texted about this briefly, but
Mhm.
I didn't want to share too much. I wanted to wait until I got you on here and we could really chop it up. What the hell did you think about that guy, man?
Bro, I've been having my eyes on Big Baby for a minute, man. Like, he's taken the American heavyweight boxing scene by storm. He's such a young kid. He's only 23 years old. 16 and 0, 15 knockouts.
Yeah,
Heavyweight champion. Like, that stuff sells itself, man. If you're an American heavyweight boxer from the United States, because we cling to our heavyweights. You know what I mean? Because we don't get very many of them in the U.S.
yeah,
these days. That's why we clung to Wilder so hard. And I think we're all starting to, get on the Big Baby bandwagon. That's for sure. For the people that weren't, they're definitely getting on now. And if they're not, then they're just not watching boxing at this point. Um, but man, I wasn't very impressed. Also, dude, 5 rounds of boxing. He ends it by knockout, and he lands 72 body shots along the way. Dude,
yeah.
career high body shots. He's been to his last fight went to decision. He didn't even hit that many body shots in that one. So, man, I'm just super excited for him. And I was watching it with my old man, who's an old school boxing fan, and he loves Deontay Wilder as much as I do. And I was like, this is the type of hype that Deontay Wilder had when he was
Mm,
coming up. 16 knockouts or 16 fights, 15 knockouts. Wilder was like 30 something wins, 30 something knockouts by the time he got to his peak. Like, this is that type of rising of a young star like we've had. So I think this is someone that we can kind of cling to like we did to the Deontay Wilders of the world. And it's very refreshing to have like a young guy because Deontay's on his way out. He's only fighting money fights now. Nice to see a young, hungry United States heavyweight boxing guy just to come in here and, take us on a ride with him, man. I'm super excited for him. And the fight itself, like I said, man, was amazing. He definitely put on a clinic for sure.
dude, a clinic is one way to put it. That body work was unlike I've never seen him like really invest like that. And it
I
was
know.
I'm glad you brought it up first because that was like the most impressive thing to me too. And the finishing sequence where he's just like right, left to the body. It's crazy, bro. And that power is legit. You talk about that KO percentage. Oh man, I'm excited, bro. Anytime and in MMA or in boxing, whenever there's like a heavyweight who's getting knockouts and who's running through people, it's always fun. And he's
Mm-hmm.
coming from US soil, which is rare. Like you said, we had Wilder for a while, but a lot of people weren't on it or they fell off fast.
Mhm.
But a guy like Baby got a lot to like about him, man. Got a lot to like, and I was seeing some articles and some talk today that Frank Sanchez might be next.
Yeah, that's what I think. Was it Jared that was calling for that one, or is that something that the matchmakers put out there?
Yeah, it was an article that I seen, so it could come from anybody, but
Mhm.
that's like the next level. Like this is what we want to see, right? Where it's like the
Exactly.
competition's getting tougher, the
Mhm.
tests are getting, it's not multiple choice anymore. Now you gotta write long worded answers and really
Yeah.
tell us what you think, you know. So
Yes,
it's
sir.
fun, man. It's fun. But how long until Jared Anderson is like in the pool with the Wilders, with the Usyks, with the Daniel Dubois, with the
Mm.
that echelon, that like really top 10 heavyweights.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the kid's only 23. You don't want to push him too hard, too fast. But a lot of the heavyweights that you mentioned, they're already mid to late 30s at this point. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think by the time that the heavyweights that are champions now, the Furies, the Usyks, those guys, I think by the time that Big Baby gets up to their level, they might be already on their way out. So it might be a perfect,
Mm,
like arching moment for him to be the one to break that ceiling and take over and be one of like the new faces of that heavyweight division. But as far as like when do I see that happening? I don't think that we should rush this kid either. I don't want to see us throw him to the wolves and ruin him either. Um, I would probably give him like 2 or 3 years before we're really like, okay, this kid's the guy in the heavyweight division. But he's
yeah.
definitely on his way, and he definitely can be if he keeps taking these incremental steps that he has been. Um, I think he has no ceiling for this kid for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think 2 to 3 years is fair. I think about a Daniel Dubois who was tossing there with the Wolf on
Mhm.
that same Saturday, and he's only 25. He's a young cat, but he did
Exactly.
not he didn't look good, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. But Jared Anderson, the future is bright. I am excited. And like you talked about, his window is opening while the top echelons are kind of closing. So
Mhm.
at some point, these are going to meet at a perfect center, and it'll be a test for him. He could take over the world or not. But I'm
Yeah,
excited.
man.
We'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
For sure, man. Like, dude, I don't know how many times I can keep saying it. Very excited about Big Baby, man, for US boxing. We don't, like I said, we don't have many of these guys. It's
Yeah.
nice to finally have one that we can cling to and not just watch him while he's at the cusp of his career. I feel like everybody got on Wilder when he was already, a little past his prime. You know what I mean? It's nice to have somebody that we can follow on the way up now for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And people are now like on the whole Shakur Stevenson hype train, and this is like a
Mhm.
heavyweight version of that. He's slick, he hits, he's power, like he does it all,
Yeah,
man.
he's got personality and character too, man. He can
Yeah.
sell. He's got it all.
He brings his dog to the fight events and like interviewing with the big huge dog. I'm like, this,
Yeah.
this, this is a cool dude right here.
Yeah, that dog's a beast too, man. I mean,
Yeah.
if a big guy like that, he better have a big dog. That's for sure.
Good point. Good point. Uh, but on the other topic of heavyweight boxing, Alexander Usyk in a I don't know, what would you describe that fight as?
It was a cluster. I'll say
Cluster.
that.
All
It
right,
was a
all right, I like
cluster,
it.
man. There was a lot of everything going on. You know what I mean? Dubois definitely just got tossed in there with the Wolves, like you said.
Yeah.
Definitely was out of his depths versus Usyk. Usyk, I'm not gonna lie though, it wasn't the best version of Usyk that I've seen either. So I'm not gonna sit here and say that I was super, super impressed by Usyk's performance. The finish obviously was great. I feel like that's what people were expecting from him. So maybe that's why it wasn't um, very as impressive to me because it's something that I was expecting him. I was expecting him to do that to Dubois earlier, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I think Dubois definitely did not look great either. But there was one thing that I liked about Dubois was that he was putting the work to the body, where you could definitely tell that he did his tape study on Usyk, and I think that this definitely kind of shined a light more on the holes in Usyk's game,
Mm,
where I'm not very privy to Usyk's amateur career, but Timothy Bradley on the broadcast had mentioned it that Usyk in his amateur career had a lot of problems with getting punched to the body. And then in one of Usyk's past fights, he definitely got cracked good to the body as well. And then excuse me, we saw Dubois kind of implement that same game plan. So I think, and it's gotten a lot of attention now because of the low blow. And people are saying that it was low. People are saying that it wasn't. the argument's there. It's become a massive storyline, but I think the overarching topic of that is we might have exposed a weakness in Usyk's game. So I think that's going to be something that we can pay attention to in Usyk's future matchups if people start adapting this body heavy attack versus him. But overall, man, Usyk went in there and did his thing, got the knockout. Dude's 21-0. Like I said, he's mid to late 30s at this point now too. So I mean, at what point are we gonna start getting him versus the big dogs? It's something that I think we need to see for sure. How'd you feel about the fight overall, though, my man?
Before I give you that, I gotta ask you an important question because you mentioned the cup shot, but you didn't say that you thought it was a cup shot. So I gotta ask,
Mm-hmm.
low blow or body shot?
In the moment, watching it live, I thought it was clean. I thought it was belt line.
Mm,
It looked like maybe a sliver of the bottom half of the glove might have been below the belt line. But when you look at the stills where you can see more of the glove and how low it was, I could definitely see how it pulls up on the guard and pushes the cup up. Whether it's a clean shot to the nuts or not, it definitely pulled the cup up, and I think that's what the reaction that you got out of Usyk. But in the moment, the referee, I put this more on the referee than anything. I don't know how Usyk got as much time as he did to recover. The dude was damn near on the canvas for like almost 2 rounds, just getting fully recovered at that point, which I think is a blunder on the ref's part. But it was up to his discretion to call it a low blow or not. He ended up calling it a low blow. And the rest is history, and that's what everybody's been debating back and forth ever since. So if you're asking me, in the moment when I was watching it, I thought body shot, clean shot. We see those shots on the belt line all the time. Um, they're not they're not determined low blows for shots that look like that, but hindsight, looking at it slow mo, stills, I can understand why it was called a low blow in the moment by the ref. How'd you feel
mm.
about it though?
Exactly the way you did. In the moment, I was like, "That's clean, like, that's right on the belt line," but then you watch it again and again and again, it's like, I don't know, maybe the bottom half of the glove definitely, you know,
Mm.
fucked up maneuvered the cup a little bit, messed up his steps, but it was I don't know, it was a long time.
Dude, have you ever seen that long of a time in between a low blow? To be honest,
Nah, I don't
that
think
you can
so. Even,
remember,
like, I in MMA, I can't think of one, and there's been some bad
it's
ones, like guys on the ground coughing hard, like,
yeah.
screaming.
And we're talking like shin bone to cup action, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
I just couldn't believe, like, even like regardless of if you think it was a low blow or not, I just couldn't believe how much time there was. And Usyk is a professional, man. You know what I mean? He's gonna milk that for all it's
right,
worth. And
yeah.
you can't blame the guy. He's a savvy boxer. That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
So when you're in that moment,
Yeah, it's
take
a
advantage of
veteran
what you
move.
can.
It's a veteran
Exactly.
move
I'm not
for
mad at
sure.
him at all. I just put it more of a blunder on the referee's part for dragging that out as long as he did.
Yeah, and he was real, like, lenient. He was giving him all the time he wanted, but there
Mhm.
was a moment where Usyk was down and just shaking his head, looking at his corner, and I was like, "Uh-oh, this is
Mhm.
not good, right? He might quit right here." And look, it's a shot to the nut by a heavyweight boxer. I'm not gonna be the one to call him a bitch over that. Like, that's
Yeah, hey,
take
I'm
your
not the
time,
guy either.
dude.
Their
Yeah.
their their hands are bigger than my whole body, so that's totally fine. My question for you though is because the other side of this debate too is, let's say a ref says that's clean, Usyk's down. Are we ruling that as Usyk wouldn't be able to make it up for the 10 count, or do you think that he would have gotten up?
Yeah, I thought if it went the other way, right, and the ref was like that it's legal and Daniel Daniel Dubois becomes world heavyweight champion, that shit would have been horrible, and it would have been, definitely a lot it would have been a bigger deal than a nut shot was
Yeah.
portrayed in the moment. So I'm kinda glad the ref did what he did. Good ref. Good ref, I thought. What did you think? What would your counter argument be to that?
I think I think Usyk only stayed down as long as he did because he knew that he had the time because it was ruled a low blow. But everybody's making a big deal about it, like, oh, look how long he was down for. He wouldn't have made it up in time for a 10 count. Dubois would have won by knockout if the ref ruled that a clean shot. I'd think, even if, let's say, the ref did call that a clean shot and Usyk did get dropped and they called that a knockdown to the body, I think Usyk still would have gotten himself up before 10.
Yeah.
I just think in the moment, it was called a low blow, so he kind of, played it out the way that he did for that reason.
Yeah, fair, fair. We talked about this low blow a whole lot, but then Usyk gets back up, right? And pours it on Daniel Dubois. And Dubois, like, I don't know, he just like he acted as if he's the one who got hit with the nut shot. Like he couldn't throw no more punches after that or something.
Mhm.
And Usyk just poured it on him, man. Showed like we talked about a few minutes ago about just being a veteran, being here before, and knowing when to press forward. And I feel like at some point of that fight, he realized Daniel can't fight if he's walking backwards.
Mhm.
If I'm pressuring him and putting him on his back foot, this guy can't do nothing. And he ended up getting knocked out by a jab. So
Yeah,
it's
that's a stiff jab too at that.
yeah, yeah. A strong jab, man. And Usyk, I don't know. I definitely see what you were talking about the body holes in his game. That definitely seems to be a thing. That clip of Joshua hitting him to the body
Mm,
and him kind of screeching over was going all over my Twitter.
yeah.
So I seen that a whole lot, and it's we'd be lying if we didn't even acknowledge it. So
Yeah,
I
there
don't know,
was
man.
the whole after the whole low blow too, you could see that Usyk was playing towards that as well. And I think it was just to fuck with Dubois mentally. Anytime Dubois was touching the belt line, Usyk was looking up at the ref. So I think low key he was getting in the head of Dubois in that aspect as well. So I think Dubois was kind of afraid to go back down there in in fear of him getting penalized or, ref thinking that he was throwing continuous low blows. But I will
Mm.
say the one thing that I was looking for after the break, and Dubois did it, and to his credit, probably one of the only highlights that I had of him the entire fight was after, the low blow. Once Usyk got back up, my man went right back to the bell line again, like right
Yeah,
after that. Which
yeah.
I'm like, dude, I was so happy in that moment. I was like, Dubois has some balls, man. I love
Yeah,
this. I was
yeah.
like, fine, dude. You got the guy down on the canvas, man, and he's milking the clock for all it's worth. And I'm like, man, if I'm Dubois, once Usyk gets up, I'm going right back to the belt line, and that's exactly what he did. And I was so happy in that moment. Um, so that I thought that was just like a crazy exchange for them. So props to Dubois for that. That might be the only props that he gets from me for the entire fight. Um, but like you said, Usyk showed out and did his thing, and he did. He walked right at Dubois and put him away with that stiff jab, man. So he did what we expected him to do. Like I said, I think everybody expected him to do it sooner, especially to a fighter like Dubois.
Yeah, a young cat like Dubois, who I don't know, whenever this fight first got announced, I was like, "That's the guy?
Mm,
That's who you're going with?" But I mean, hey, it was a Usyk night, but, like, it's evident what we all want. There's only one fight in this division at the top. There's only one, and there's it's really foolish that it's really taken this long. We have to talk about it so much. And there's still, like, no progress. There's no, like, "Alright, he's next. I'm going for
mm.
Belly." You know what I'm saying? It's none of that. It's just it's really frustrating, bro. Because I only want him to fight Tyson Fury. That's it. That's the only fight there is at the heavyweight division, and I know you've seen that whole December tournament thing in Saudi Arabia, having Wilder and Joshua be
Yeah.
the co-main. Why not? That shit would light up the boxing world, man.
It'd be absolutely massive, dude. It would break the universe at that point if we were able to pull something like that off. And if anybody has the money to do it, it's the Saudis. So I mean, it's a perfect like concoction of just a boxing legacy, man. Like that shit would go down in history. So if there's any way to pull that off, please somebody do that because we need it, to be honest. Especially in this heavyweight landscape, man. We need some excitement.
Mm, that's it, man. That's it. Although, like, Wilder and Joshua could sell out Wembley, they could be its own main event.
Yeah, easily.
Let's make it happen in one night. Just like think,
Bro.
like even if the UFC threw a pay per view on that night, there might be it's a boxing night. That's all
Yeah.
we're all watching.
If we're talking about those two fights, dude, versus the UFC, yeah, it's
Come on.
the UFC ain't stacking that card up because they know they're about to take some hits on their pay-per-view numbers. So you might get like a little rinky-dink UFC pay-per-view at that point because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think they'll just concede the L. But dude, the world was shut down at that point if that boxing event was made.
So let's make it happen.
Let's
Let's
make it
make it
happen,
happen.
man.
I feel like I've done this 20 times on my own show. Just like enough is enough.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, it's always like the thing that you can always just fall back on. You're just like, but it's boxing, man. You know what I mean? Like it's just so hard for these matchups to come to fruition. So you just usually just go, it would be sick, but it's boxing. You
Fuck
know,
that.
like
Yeah, fuck
it's just
that. That
hard. I hate it. I hate it as
yeah,
like as a real fan of boxing who loves to see these fights happen. It's just like it gets to a point where you're just like you how often can you talk about these things and then they just don't happen, you know what I mean? So you just have
yeah,
to like for your own mental sanity, you just have to be like, but it's boxing, man.
yeah,
It's just what is the powers that be are the powers that be, the
yeah.
politics and all that in between. You're just like, is it gonna
That's
happen? We hope so, but it's boxing.
yeah, the politics and all the bullshit always gets involved, takes over, and doesn't give us the fights that we want. But it feels like 2023, it's the boxers leading, man. We got in Crawford, Spence, which I've done on my show multiple times. I've done it with you a few times on my show, and then
Mhm,
it happened. And then before that, we had Garcia and Tank, a
mhm,
massive, massive fight. So I hope with that and kind of some other fights that are going down this year, the Charlo Canelo, like the big fights just need to happen. Uh so that's that on that, man. The heavyweight pictures is like the 45 division in the UFC. There's so much fun guys. We just let them fight each other.
I agree,
And that's
man.
that's the topic of today.
Hey, man, I couldn't have said it any better myself. Couldn't have said it any better myself.
Speaking of UFC, let's transition here into UFC Paris this weekend.
Yeah,
Uh
man, in Paris,
in
France, baby.
Paris. Would you have you ever been or would you ever go to Paris?
Never been. I've never been to Europe. It's definitely,
Oh, okay.
a high on my list of places to travel to. Yes, I definitely would go. I've been out of the country a few times, but never to Europe.
Mm.
But definitely would like to go over there and just experience that culture, man. It just seems like a different world over there.
Dude, that shit seems awesome. My co-host Josh, who usually I do the show with, he was there a few weeks ago and he said nothing but good things. So one day, imagine for a UFC event of this magnitude, going to see some heavyweights throw
Yeah,
down.
dude, especially a French guy like Cyril Gahn, man, too. That's just him headlining a card in Paris, France, right there. That sells itself. That's enough.
Again,
That's enough of a destination fight for you to travel out there and see, man. That's gonna be a scene for sure.
there's only been 2 UFC cards in Paris, and this Frenchman has headlined both of them. That's a fucking shit. That's something special, man. So we're
It's kind of like in recent memory, every time the UFC goes to London, it's Tom Aspinall. You know what I mean?
mhm,
Tom Aspinall is always the headliner for the London cards, and now we got Cyril Gahn in that spot for the Paris cards.
mhm.
Pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool that they have you know top five guys in the heavyweight division, which that sells itself automatically, and then they can go to their respective countries and they can headline those shows. It's definitely something cool, man.
Yeah, it's so special, dude. It's something that like boxing is starting to come around to. Like it feels like the UFC caters cards around like homegrown talent,
Hmm.
and now like I'm sure boxing's always done that, but now it's becoming more and more and more of a thing, which is awesome to see because you see how these crowds go, man.
Hmm.
Last weekend we didn't even mention the crowd in Singapore for Zombie.
Oh
That
yeah,
was
dude.
fucking nuts, dude. The
Absolute
walkout.
absolute chills for myself, dude. I think I sent out a tweet and I just said, "Give Zombie the walkout of the
Oh, I
year right
seen
now."
that. Yeah.
I don't even remember any of the other walkouts at this point. I don't know what's coming out after this, but dude, that right there was one of the best walkouts I've ever seen. Just absolute scenes in Singapore. And then they gave him the respect on the way out too, with chanting the song, and they played his music, which they don't typically
Yeah.
do that for people. I think it was an absolute scene, man. It was
It was
awesome to see.
yo, dude, the aftermath of that scene was oh man. I watched just that part a few times afterwards. Thankfully,
Mhm.
ESPN is one of those things you can just keep going back and watching it.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I didn't even know Zombie's song until like everybody's screaming it, and like you said, they don't do things like that. And at least they'll have it on as background music, but this was like an
Yeah.
entrance. This was
Mhm.
like he was walking again and he was just embracing the crowd doing this, like, oh man, all that shit was awesome, very
It was
emotional.
oh,
Congrats to
crazy, man.
Zombie.
Yeah, hell of a career, man. Thank you for the memories, because a guy like me who's been coming up watching the MMA and the UFC, like WEC days, and Zombie's been around for a minute, being hyped for Zombie and then having to see him go away for his 2 years of,
Yeah.
military duty in Korea sucked right in the height of his career. And then for him to come back, it was like a whole scene that Zombie's back, man. So lots of Zombie memories for sure. Definitely deserved that moment in Singapore.
I'm glad we we didn't forget that part because that was
Yeah,
such an important part of Saturday.
yeah, we got it in there, man. We
Yeah,
got it in
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, man. Cyril Gane versus Sergey Spivak. Spivak, the heavy hitting Russian who they're trying to paint as like this takedown technician, but he's starching people.
Mhm.
What do you think of this matchup?
I'm very confused by the odds in this fight because I'm a gambling man. The
Ooh,
first thing I look at in a fight is always betting odds.
tell us.
I can't believe that Cyril Gane's only minus 165 right now. I feel like he should be at least in the minus 200s. I think he should be a bigger favorite. I think people are putting this John Jones loss in like just the grappling, that there's a grappling deficiency in Cyril Gane's game. Everybody has known that. But Jones obviously highlighted it and made quick work of him. So the fact that we're kind of holding that against him in this one versus Spivak, I don't think Spivak, I don't think his grappling is anywhere close to what John Jones's is, and I don't think
Mm,
that Spivak's gonna be able to pull that off the way that Jones did. So if in that aspect, if we're just looking at this as like just a straight up fight, I just don't see how Cyril Gane's not the clear and away favorite, which he is. Don't get me wrong, minus 165 is nothing to sneeze at, but I just feel like he should be a bigger favorite than that. I feel like there's going to be a lot of money to be made on Cyril Gane.
ooh, ooh. Is he you throwing him in some lays? Or you just you straighting him?
Oh,
What do you give the people some picks, Chris? Come on.
Oh, I got a little 4 leg parlay that I cooked up. I haven't posted it yet, but I'm going. Let me just run it through real quick. I
You're
got
gonna give me
Cyril.
a sneak peak
Yeah,
before oh shit,
yeah.
look at
I'll
this.
I'll
Some
drop it right here.
VIP shit right here. Let's hear
Yeah,
it.
let me get to my camera roll real quick so I can actually before so I don't fuck it up.
Let's get you that full screen, my
Yeah.
boy. Let's hear it.
So I'm running a 4 leg parlay, total odds plus 332. I'm running Cyril Gane. I'm running Benoit Saint Denis. I'm running Morgan Charrier, and then I'm running Jacqueline Cavalcanti. Four
Mm,
legs. Going to pay you out plus 332, $100 to win 332. I don't see how that one misses. The Saint Denis fight might be the only one that I'm a little iffy about, but I think that he should be able to beat Thiago Moises. To be honest with you, I think his grappling is on par, if not better than Moises. So
mm.
I think that's my only leg that I'm a little iffy on, but I think the other three are pretty clear in a way going to cash. But I like to risk it a little bit for the biscuit. You scare money don't make money. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right. Plus 330, man. That's
Not bad, not bad.
yeah, that's pretty good. And so what are you gambling on a week to week basis? Like, are we talking 3 units, 4 units, 5 units, 10 units?
It depends on the card. It depends on if I can see a way to, I like to gamble for fun.
Yeah,
So the money is just a plus to win. But
it's the
man,
best way
I'm
to do it.
on the weekend. I'm probably putting out like 4 to 5 units on a UFC fight card. Nothing too crazy, but enough for me. Like if I end up losing all of it, it's like whatever. We'll get it back next weekend. But then if we hit, we hit. You know what I mean? So
Mm,
I just get, like I said, I gamble to have fun. I'm definitely not an expert by any means. I think I'm down on the year in UFC, but I'm up in other sports to kind of
nice.
leverage that out a little bit.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? So
Make yourself feel a little better.
yeah, exactly.
I love it.
So
I love
it's
it, man.
fun, man. It's fun.
Yeah, hell yeah. And for
And
the
I'm a
listener,
degenerate. I'm a degenerate as hell, man. So
yeah, for the listeners, if you don't already know, if you've been under a rock this whole time, Cajun podcast, that's where you get it. That's where you get the weekly picks on the Instagram. You get them off top on the stories.
your
So definitely
Instagram,
tune
Twitter,
in.
we're doing all that degeneracy over on my page for sure.
Hell yeah, brother. All right, so it sounds like you got Cyril gone.
I do. Like I said, man. I got gone. I don't understand how he's not a bigger favorite. Maybe the line moves before fight night. Maybe a lot of money comes in on him once people start peeking the lines and seeing that Cyril gone by knockouts literally even money right now, plus 100. I think
Uh,
that's a very clear path of victory for him. Um, so once people get privy to the
mm,
lines, I feel like these lines might change a little bit, but I have full confidence in Cyril Gane in Paris, man, in his backyard. He ain't losing this one, man. Come on.
yeah, I hear you. Now, this is why I'm a horrible gambler. It's
Hmm.
because I definitely think Cyril Gane has way more routes to victory, like you talked about. I definitely see him winning this.
Hmm.
But you telling me that Spivak is the dog in this one? I could talk myself into him winning because
Sure,
the
yeah. Like
dude
I said, Cyril Gane has a very clear hole in his game, and that's the grappling department. If you have the grappling chops to take Cyril Gane down and put him away, that's a very clear path to victory for you.
100%. And like you said, no way Spivak is on a John Jones level.
Mm-mm.
But John Jones made Cyril look like a 4-year-old. And if Sergey is like 30% of that, maybe he can make Cyril look human. and that might be enough, man. So what's the Cyril Spivak line on a KO?
Zeros on the Sergey Spivak to win by KO.
Yep, give me that line.
Hold on, let me pull it up. That's just one click away.
Now, this is why I'm a horrible gambler, because you could tell me anything and I'm betting that.
Yeah, Spivak to win by knockouts plus 450.
Give me it. Give me it. I'm taking that. That's my pick. Stamped. Ground and
Stamp it.
pound.
There you go, man. Hey, Spivak's a big boy, man. He gets down there and does what he can do. Like you said, he's got heavy hands. He's got some submissions on his record too, so don't be surprised if he starts throwing out some submission attempts. I think that it is a good heavyweight fight for this UFC Paris main event. But like I said, man, I'm gonna keep doubling, tripling down on it. I just don't see how Cyril Gane can drop this one.
Fair, man. I love it. And a fun co-main event we have in store. French's own Manon Fion,
Mm-hmm.
Florent. I can never say her name right, but
I think it's Manon Farrow. I'm not great at it either, but
yeah. Anyways, she's fighting a fan favorite, Rose Namajunas, who's making her flyweight debut, moving
yeah,
up. What do
dude,
you think?
I'm very excited to see Rose, man. Every time she's a fan favorite, the people love her.
Yeah.
Anytime she's on a card, people are tuning in. Doesn't matter if she's main event, co-main event, title fight, non-title fight. Everybody just loves to see her fight. It's very exciting to see her back. It's been a little bit. She hasn't fought since she lost the title to Carla Esparza. So it's going to be interesting to see Rose at a heavier weight. She's going up to 125. I think Manon is going to be the naturally bigger girl in this fight. But Rose is an absolute dog, man. They don't call her Thug Rose for nothing. She's an underdog in this fight. People are expecting Manon to win. And rightfully so. She's been on an absolute tear, and this is her division that she's fighting in, and Rose is coming up to her. So I'm not mad at the lines, and I'm not mad at Rose coming in as an underdog. But it's just very tough to tell what Rose Namajunas we're gonna get. I'm hoping that we're gonna get some vintage Rose Namajunas on Saturday night, and she's gonna come out there and get a W and get back in there, man. Because MMA is more fun, the UFC is more fun when Rose Namajunas is in the mix, man. I just think that's facts.
I agree 100%. I stand by that. Thug Rose is one of the funnest fighters, period.
Mm-hmm.
Period. And yeah, that win against Wei Lee's aging beautifully. She's still, she talked about the weight cut this week and how challenging it became for her. So it doesn't sound like she'll move down, but carrying that to her next venture at 125 has to help. Has to help.
100%.
But the problem is, if she gets past Manon this weekend, no way, she's not going to fight Valentina. Or she'll fight Grasso, but Grasso's fighting Valentina in the rematch, and I don't know. I just see Valentina winning that, but I don't see Rose ever fighting her. She's came out and talked about how close they are, how much they train together, and all that good stuff. And then I don't know. It's kind of like, what's the point? A little bit,
right? Yeah, man. It's an interesting point. We'll see what happens. Like we got a couple hurdles to get through first. Rose got to get through this one. And then, but hey, if Grasso ends up beating Shevchenko in the rematch, there's no reason for them to make that a third. At that point, that kind of opens up the door to some new players in that division. Maybe if Rose comes out here and does something crazy and gets out of here with a finish, she might throw her name in that hat. There's obviously a lot of other girls, chomping at the bit to get a title shot as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that division plays out. I would love to see Rose get in the mix, though. Maybe give her another title shot, man. Anything to get Rose some more gold. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's do it.
Let's do it. So, who do you see winning this Saturday
in this fight? Oh, this
this
is probably the hardest fight for me to pick, man. I guess this is a head versus heart pick for me. My heart is with Rose. My head just says Manon, just because that she's been on a tear. She's been more active than Rose has recently. She's strung together a lot of wins. Her confidence is super high right now. She got the ranking next to her name to prove it in her division. So, dude, this is really a coin flip fight for me, to be honest with you. It just depends on what version of Rose we're going to get. You know what I mean? I feel like mentally sometimes Rose isn't there all the way in a fight, but then sometimes she flips that switch and she's an absolute dog. Which is tough to say because everybody loves her, but I think that's the matter of the situation. Is it just depends on what version of Rose Namajunas shows up Saturday night. But if it is vintage Rose that we're used to seeing, I don't think there should be any problems with her pulling off a W on Saturday.
Mm, well said. I'm gonna go with your heart. I just I'm a loyal guy, man. I'm gonna stick with the fan favorite. I'm gonna go Rose Namajunas. Although going to Paris to fight a fighter from Paris who trains
Mhm.
in Paris, lives in Paris, grew up there, like it's a clear advantage aside from the tier that you mentioned. There's a lot leading in Manon's direction. I see that, which is why I can see why your head thinks she's gonna win it. But I'm gonna stick with Rose, man. And I'll also throw some cheddar on that Rose by KO, some sweet head kick or something.
Yeah, man. That'd be beautiful, huh? Imagine that. If Rose can get a win and like a viral knockout moment like that, like how do you not like just automatically put her names in the rankings of that 125 division? You have to.
You have to. You have to. And then there's like surging contenders. There's Aaron Blanchfields of the world. There's a lot of fun fights in there. And I'm excited to see how Rose fares against those bigger sized ladies.
I agree with you, man. I agree with you. It's gonna be fun for sure.
My boy, Chris, this was a blast, my man. And you had a great last interview with Jay Curley. I want to just plug that real quick to listeners. Go listen to that
Appreciate
on
you.
YouTube. That shit was I listened to it this morning on my way to work. And Jay's a fun guy, man. I'm excited to see him fight. He was saying some things that a fan would want to hear. So I'm all in on that one.
Exactly, man. He's such a good kid, man. Every time I talk to him, every time I see him in person, I ran into him at the bar after Cage Titan 60,
Yeah.
and we chopped it up a little bit. He's just such a nice kid, man. A lot of talent too, talented wrestler. Uh, Everything's coming together for him now. He's got some great training camps in the works right now. So very excited to see his comeback performance. It's been a year and some change in the making. So very excited to see what he can do, man. I appreciate you, listening to the show, of course, always. And I'm always tuning in. I love hearing you and Josh, chop it up when you guys do show like this. Tell Josh I'm coming for his job. He better get back on the mic soon. Otherwise, he's not going to have a job no more.
Listen, Josh, you heard it.
Get back on the bike, man. You might lose your seat. But no, I love listening to you guys talk, man. It's nice to
My
have two
boy.
sides of the coin here where you can go back and forth to somebody about stuff like this better than talking to the camera by yourself.
Yeah.
So it's definitely fun, man. I'm always tuning in. I love what you guys do.
Yeah, I got you on speed dial, bro. Anytime anybody ever falls out, you're my last minute replacement. You're my guy.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that.
Let the people know where to find you, how they can get locked in, where they can get this fuck dope shirt. You know what I'm saying? Let them know.
Hey, man, you can find me on Instagram, Caged In Podcast on Instagram. On Twitter, it's Caged In MMA Pod because somebody decided to steal my name before I could get it.
Oh, how fucking
Whoever
annoying.
whoever it is, I'm coming for you. I want all my handles to be the same. Um, but yeah, man, that's where it is. Caged in Podcast on Instagram, Caged in MMA Pod on Twitter. That's pretty much the only two social media platforms that I'm active. But you can listen to the podcast Caged In with Chris DiCarlo. I'm on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the whole shebang. Ferris, man, always a pleasure coming on and chopping it up with you, brother. I'm sure we'll be doing another one of these soon.
My man, absolutely, bro. We're this is just the beginning of everything, man. And thank you for the time tonight. And again, we'll talk soon.
Yes, sir, man. Appreciate you.